What is up, guys, and welcome to my review of Smile 2. I was actually in attendance 2 years ago at the world premiere of the first Smile, which was a movie that I really didn't have that high of expectations for. The marketing, the concept felt like a been there, done that type horror flick, and I actually walked out a bit surprised. The execution was really good on a level where you had something that was obviously a bit derivative of something like The Ring or It Follows more directly, but stood out and gave us a really cool, creepy, tense experience that merited its existence. And so once I heard that they were doing a Smile 2, it wasn't a huge surprise because the first one was a very big hit. I think they made like 200 plus million, and they were going to put that on streaming services, so that should be a lesson to studios. Don't discount horror. But while I didn't walk into this movie expecting negative things, I was a bit worried because the first film in and of itself was a very familiar concept. It was a very derivative concept. And so in my mind, what are we going to do this second time to advance things? What are we going to do to progress this concept, to go bigger, to go into places that we did not go into in the first film? Where are we going to go that's going to merit revisiting the world of Smile? And the basic premise of Smile 2 is that we're following this pop star that is trying to rebuild her life, trying to rebuild her career, and unfortunately the demonic, malevolent curse from the first film has made its way to her. So now as she is trying to rebuild her life is systematically disassembling because of this curse that makes her seem crazy to everybody, makes her see a bunch of demonic smiling people everywhere, and starts to absolutely destroy her sense of reality. Now, while having a bunch of smiling people chasing you certainly feels like a curse that none of us would want to endure, an even worse curse is not being able to enjoy your childhood favorite cereals anymore. But I have the cure, and it's the sponsor of today's video, Magic Spoon. When I was growing up, starting off my day with a delicious bowl of cereal was practically a requirement. But now as an adult, I try to watch my sugar intake and the amount of carbs that I eat. And let me tell you, it is a cold, dark day when you realize that your childhood favorites no longer fit your lifestyle. Well, with Magic Spoon, I'm able to enjoy all of my childhood favorites once again. Magic Spoon is a wholesome, high-protein cereal that has 0 sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs per serving. And it comes in a wide variety of your favorite flavors such as cocoa, peanut butter, and fruity, and even a few wilder flavors like cinnamon roll, maple waffle, and birthday cake. You can even be bold like me and mix some of your favorites together for a chocolate peanut butter delight. All of that plus a design inspired by Saturday morning cartoons, and I'm transported back to the 90s with every bowl. And if you want that delicious nostalgia on the go, they also have Magic Spoon treats that have 1 gram of sugar, 11 to 12 grams of protein, and only 1 to 2 grams of net carbs per serving. And Magic Spoon is so confident that you'll love their product that all of it is backed by a 100% happiness guarantee. So if for whatever reason you don't enjoy Magic Spoon, they'll give you a refund, no questions asked. So if you're ready to enjoy some of your childhood favorites without all that extra guilt, click the link below to get some Magic Spoon cereal today. You can build your very own custom box with all the flavors that you love and use my code CLEACH for $5 off. You can choose from any of the flavors that I've shown, plus some other favorites like frosted, honey nut, blueberry muffin, and chocolate chip cookie. You can also add any of their delicious cereal treats to your order. And you can find Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store as well. So click the link in the description or go to magicspoon.com/cleach for $5 off. And thank you so much to Magic Spoon for sponsoring today's video. Now, I do think that this is one of those movies that I don't want to do a full spoiler review for it, but I do want to talk a little bit of specificity. So after I give my rating, I will do a spoiler section of just a couple of things I want to discuss with this movie. That will be at the end of the video. I'll still put a spoiler warning, but this is your first warning. If you have not seen this film, please do not watch to the end of this video and then comment down below that I spoiled the movie for you. You spoiled the movie for your damn self. So starting off with the positives of Smile 2. For me, the star of the show this time around was Parker Finn, the writer and director of both of these films. He was kind of the standout of the first film to me. I saw it at a film festival, so he introed it, he did a Q&A afterwards, and he just had this energy of a really fun and hungry young filmmaker that is happy and excited to finally break out, had a bunch of people seeing his first film, and you see a raise in confidence in this second film with the way that he does the direction. There's a number of sequences in here that are very impressive. There's a couple of one-shot sequences, predominantly the one that opens up this film, that was very well executed. There's a lot of really solid scares, the way that it's both built and the way that it's paid off. You have even just the way that he uses the camera and the way that he tries to kind of disassemble a shot and attack it from a different angle that you wouldn't typically see, like a sequence still in the first act of the film where you pretty much see everything that's going on through a mirror, or the way that the camera flips upside down with these drone shots and helicopter shots, and just a lot of really cool things to be brought into a concept that wouldn't necessarily necessitate these really tricky camera ideas or these types of ambitious sequences. You could do a very straightforward, basic level direction for this film, and it would probably turn out okay. But you see Parker Finn as a filmmaker that has now cut his teeth on 2 films, and I really want to see what he does next. I kind of wish I could have seen him do his second film with something that is not another Smile film, just to see really what this guy can do. But regardless, after walking out of these 2 films, he's the name that I have my eye on. Naomi Scott, who plays our lead character here, also does a fantastic job. I have really enjoyed her work, seeing her in the Power Rangers film. That was a nice surprise, seeing her in Aladdin, a couple other things, but here, she really owns this role, and it's a very demanding role because not only does she have to just exhibit anxiety and terror and tension throughout damn near the entire film, and she perfectly exhibits somebody that is losing their mind for the full 2-hour runtime, but it also demands a lot out of her as far as dance choreography and singing. She did record the vocals for the songs that we get in this movie, similar to how she did with Aladdin. So it really is a multi-layered performance. It is a role that demands a lot of her various talents, and I think alongside Parker Finn, she is the showcase of this movie, of somebody that just has a hell of a career in front of her, and I will continue to watch everything that she does. I still gotta give kudos for the way that they execute this concept. This very easily could have been something silly. It got a lot of comparisons to the film Truth or Dare whenever we saw the trailers for the first film, which is obviously not a positive thing to be compared to, we'll just put it that way. And this could very easily have been a movie like that, where even just the smile gimmick in and of itself is silly and meme-worthy, but they genuinely make it something that is unnerving here. And one of the ways that they're able to do that is by just having actors exhibit this really unnaturally big smile. There's no CGI, there's no kind of modification or trickery going on. You just have to cast actors that can give a really fucked up, unnerving smile. One of which being Jack Nicholson's son. And yeah, perfect casting for that. Somebody that just has a fucked up smile that makes you go, ew. Get away. And the way that this curse ends up being a way to commentate on trauma and, you know, especially specifically in this film, like mistakes of the past and something that is haunting you, it's multi-layered. You know, it's something that's not just a surface level, creepy people with smiles are chasing you. It is something that attacks the mind and attacks the psychosis of the character. And so it is something that is an experience as far as tension, as far as anxiety, as far as the exploration of trauma that cuts a bit deeper than you would initially think a movie like this would. I also thought that the sound design and the score were great. It's the same composer as the first film, and so you get a number of moments here where you do have a very signature score for this now franchise that I think is very good. And sound design specifically, there's a number of scares in this movie where you're in a room and you just hear something and you don't know exactly what it is, you don't know where it is, but you know something is there. And the way that they utilize that to build a number of the scares in this movie was really refreshing. It's not just your typical jump scare frenzy where it's sound cuts out, we're in the dark, or somebody's getting ready to shut the fridge and something jumps out at you. You're just kind of carrying on in a regular situation, and then you hear this unnatural sound. And you, the character, and everybody watching the movie goes, oh, shit's about to go down. They also stepped up the gore a good bit in this film. Now, there's not a ton of it. If you're a slasher gore whore, don't walk into this expecting that, but the few violent sequences that we do get in this movie, the effects are pretty gnarly. The look of people as they are being killed or as they are doing damage to themselves, it looked really good. It seemed like a good bit of it was practical. I'm sure they used some CGI to help in there, but it looked real to me. And it was effectively stomach churning. So if you're gonna throw a little bit of that gore in there, a little bit of that carnage candy, you're always gonna get a gold star from me. And my final positive is that I absolutely loved the way that this movie opened up, the way that it bridged the story of the first film into what we're going to be experiencing in the second film. Unfortunately, they gave away one of the bigger parts of it in the fucking marketing. But other than that, it was a really impressively executed sequence. It's all in one shot. There's a lot going on here. You get a great performance from the actor that is leading this. And it's a very tense and uncomfortable situation because it just systematically starts to go wrong. And the whole time you're trying to figure out what exactly are we doing here? What's the plan? Just as the plan is unraveling. So as a way to kick this movie off, it starts with a fucking bang. In a way where I honestly wish I could have seen that movie. And that doesn't necessarily bode well for where I'm going to go in my mix and my negatives, but yes, the movie for me peaked in its first 7 minutes. Not to say that there's not value after that 7 minutes, but that was the best part of the film for me, was the opening. Moving on to the mixed, the big one for me is that I just don't know if there was enough juice in this concept to merit a second film. And it's always difficult to have that conversation with horror because most of our favorite horror franchises are just kind of recycling the same idea for sequels. Whether it be your slasher franchises, whether it be Insidious or something like that, a lot of these movies are taking kind of the core concept, the core ideas that everybody loved about the first film, and trying to do those again with some small changes. Sometimes that works for me. Sometimes it feels like a bit been there, done that. And I felt more on that side with Smile 2, which was my biggest concern walking into this movie is what new are we going to do? What are we going to do to advance this concept, to tell me more about this demon, to tell me more about this curse, or to experience it in a new way? And the way that they go about it is just kind of making things bigger, making some of the set pieces bigger, making the world of this character bigger than the world of the first movie's character. And while that certainly gave this movie its own flavor, while there's certainly some attempt here to make Smile 2 a bit of a different experience, at its core, it did feel like I was just going through the same beats of the first film. So some of you will love that. Some of you want a film to go through the beats again. You want to re-experience that in a new character's world. For me, I really wish they would have done more narrative things regarding this curse and this demon specifically to give me a unique experience the second time around, not something that felt like I've already kind of seen this movie. Now, with all that being said, I do think if you enjoy the first Smile, you should absolutely check out Smile 2. Most people, the overwhelming majority from what I have seen so far just in the first couple of days, that saw Smile 2 have preferred it to Smile 1. They think this is a better movie, a more ambitious movie, a more exciting, a more tense, a more scary movie. I don't agree with that, but I still think that it is a solid movie. I would still give it a recommendation. So as many issues as I have with this film that I'm about to get into, if you like the first one, give the second one a shot. And now, moving on to my negatives with Smile 2. Let's get the small one out of the way first, because this really isn't a big issue, but it is something that had my attention drawn to it, and I couldn't stop drawing my attention to it. I'm not typically somebody to bitch or even point out product placement, but my God, I hope Voss Water gave them a nice check because there's like 8 minutes of screen time at least dedicated to Naomi Scott just chugging entire bottles of Voss Water with the label sticking out to the camera. They give you a narrative reason for why she's always chugging water, but it felt more like they wrote that in to justify the product placement more so than that being a piece of the script and they just happened to get a sponsor to fill in what that water bottle was going to be. Moving on from that, where I thought the first film was very good at being this very grounded and unnerving, atmospheric horror experience, this one to me relied significantly more on jump scares. Now they are good, solid jump scares. They are not egregious ones. They're not ones that make me roll my eyes. But it is the majority of the scare experience that you are getting here, which is the main reason why a lot of people are saying this is the scariest movie of the year. I could not disagree more, but I don't respond to jump scares in that way. That's not what I would consider the scariest experience for me, so it's all subjective. But it was a little disappointing that we're expanding things and we don't quite latch onto that atmospheric dread that we had in the first film as much, in my opinion. More so than we're just setting up jumps. We're setting up loud noises. We're setting up visuals to jump out at you. And that's where the majority of the scare sequences are relying on, is that type of trickery.
911, what's your emergency?
I also found Naomi Scott's character to be a bit exhausting as the movie went on. Now, I do think that is attributed to the runtime, so I'll just talk about that here as well. This is a movie that should have been at least 20 minutes shorter in my mind. I feel like a lot of the things that we explored, especially in the middle act of the film, was kind of spinning its wheels. And as I said in my mix, was not necessarily venturing into new territory, and so it just felt like we were redundancy We were exploring a lot of things that we already knew. And so her character's mania, her character's increasing anxiety started to get a little bit grating for me because it's just so much of that. So much of the runtime is her losing her shit on everybody and losing her mind and screaming at people. And I just didn't find her character as enjoyable as a character as Sosie Bacon's character. Performance is outstanding, just the way that the character is utilized didn't work as well for me. And since I've already brought up the second act, for me, the second act specifically of this film, the middle hour or so, really dragged. This is a film that I feel like kicked off really well in the first act. The first act is just off to the races. It just grabs you by the throat. You see a lot of great direction, a lot of great camera work, a one-shot sequence, some really crazy visuals. And then the second act really meanders a lot. And then once you get into the third act, things pick up a little bit, but I have my issues with that as well. But the second act specifically of this movie is where a lot of those cuts should have been made, in my opinion. This should not have been a 2-hour plus film. And finally, what was ultimately my biggest issue with this movie is that one of the elements that they focus significantly more on in this sequel is playing with what is reality versus what is a hallucination or an apparition in the main character's head. We got a little bit of that in the first film, but we get a fuck ton of it in the second film. And this is just a me thing. Some people like that. Some people really enjoy having their mind played with, having the rug pulled out from under them, watching entire chunks of a film that are then deemed as a dream sequence or a hallucination. They like that kind of mental trickery. I like it when it's executed well, but I also have a limit. 1 or 2 times you can do that in a film and I'm on board for it. But if you continue to do that, or if you continue to do that with large chunks of the film, I immediately disengage from your story and I disengage from your characters, because now you have pulled the wool over my eyes so many times within the runtime of a film that I can no longer invest myself in what's going on, because it might just all be a dream again. It might just all be an apparition or a hallucination. We might get 15 minutes further in the film and I find out everything I just watched doesn't matter. And this movie, that was its biggest Achilles heel for my experience. They just continuously kept pulling that trick to such an egregious level where, without saying too much, by the time you get really deep into the third act, I genuinely felt cheated as a viewer. There is a reveal that comes that is going to shock some and really frustrate the living fuck out of others. And unfortunately, I belong to this camp. And what made it even harsher for me is that this is a film where I had a pretty good idea of where they were going to end this film ever since I saw the first trailer, ever since I heard the concept of what they were going to be doing in this sequel. And I walked in saying, please don't do that, because that is such an obvious way to go. Please tell me you got something better in mind. I shouldn't be able to come up with this before I even see your marketing. And the third act goes in a way where I was actually relieved. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, that can't be the direction we're going anymore. Awesome. We're having some surprises in store for me. I'm excited to see where we go. And then they pull a switcheroo and end things exactly where I knew they were going to end months ago. And I just did not enjoy that as a conclusion for multiple reasons. The fact that it was predictable is one. Another is that it is extremely derivative of an ending to another film. And so unfortunately, I was already on some shaky ground with the movie, and then the third act of this film really left a sour taste in my mouth. It really soured my experience with the overall film and left me walking away feeling disappointed and cheated are the 2 words that I would say would describe my experience the best. So overall, guys, this is a movie that I think is fine. I had a decent time with it. I would recommend it to people for a nice October spooky season watch. And especially if you enjoyed the first film, give it a shot, because I do think I'm in the minority with this one, and you're probably going to like it more than I will. The chances are on your side. But I felt like this was a very derivative experience of the first film. While having a great central performance, while having definitely some stepped up direction, I just wanted more from the story. I wanted more from this concept, and I don't feel like I got it. Now, with that said, guys, we're talking spoilers. If you've not seen the movie, get the fuck out of here. All right, a couple of things I wanted to talk about. The opening sequence with Kyle Gallner's character. First of all, fuck you trailer for showing us how he was going to die. I was so pissed when I saw that in the first trailer going, why? That's a cool as fuck shot with the blood smear being a smile. I get it, but why would you show that in the trailer? Nonetheless, that was my favorite part of the movie. Seeing how his character, 5 or 6 days after the events of the first film, was trying to break this curse in his own way. But I do have some confusion regarding what his plan was. So I get that he was trying to pass the curse onto a shitbag person so that he wouldn't feel bad about the carnage that's going to ensue in their life, because in his mind, they deserve it. Get all of that, and that was a cool direction to go. However, the way that he was executing his plan was a bit confusing for me. So he starts butchering the dude's brother in front of him and didn't expect him to pick up the gun and shoot at him. That felt a little odd to me. Maybe he's confused about how this curse worked. I mean, he seemed to have a pretty good idea with it, with all the information he got from Sosie Bacon's character in the first film. But why he wouldn't just bind these guys down and sit in the room with them until the demonic entity came and took him, like, I don't know. I don't know exactly what his plan was. It seemed like he walked in there without a plan. Now, you can explain that away by saying that every single one of these people during the last 5-6 hours of this curse before they do their thing, they're not thinking straight, and that's fine. I could accept that, but I was just slightly confused, as much as I loved that sequence, on what exactly his plan was, because it didn't really feel like it all added up to me. I also, if you could explain this down in the comment section below, the drug dealer character, the one that passes it on to Naomi Scott's character, was he the one that was driving the truck? Because I felt like that was a bit unclear, because you would think the person that hit him with the truck, if anybody's going to get the curse, it would be them, but I never saw any kind of a visual tracking to show that character go outside and get into the truck. Also, on that note, if he dies in a truck accident, doesn't that kind of negate the curse a little bit? Like, I thought you had to kill yourself in a violent, gory way in front of somebody for it to be passed on, and he just dies in an accident. Same way that, like, Naomi Scott was saying, if I start to say anything crazy, just shoot me in the head to stop all of this. Like, I don't know. Some questions that I have. So if you have definitive answers, if this was explained that I missed it, if it was something from the first film that I'm not remembering, clarify it for me down below. But I loved that sequence. Thought it was badass. Now we get into the third act of the movie, really, because the rest of it I don't think really needs much discussion. I was really intrigued with this direction they were going with. We're going to stop your heart and we're going to bring you back. Kind of a Final Destination 2 style ending. And it really frustrated me that all of that was deemed irrelevant. Like, that's the only piece of advancing this lore that we got here. We didn't get any new information about this demon or this curse. We didn't get any new information about how to potentially stop it or how other people have tried to stop it. That was it. And it was all deemed irrelevant with this sequence of the demon saying, oh yeah, all that shit from the last hour you've been watching? Not true, motherfucker. Everybody's still alive. Break a leg out there. Here's your concert. So that was a big frustration for me. You know, even that in and of itself, if they had paid that off, I still would have said I wanted more. I wanted more advancement of the lore, but that was it. That was all that we really got here. And the fact that we didn't do anything with that really bummed me out. Now you get to the final sequence of the movie, which is her falling victim to this curse, this demon, on stage in front of a crowd. And unfortunately, I knew that was going to be the ending all the way back when they said it was going to be focused on a pop star. Because the instant connections that I made, all of us compared this movie to Truth or Dare when the first film came out. They said, oh, it's like the Smile thing from Truth or Dare. We all said that. And Smile is a significantly better movie, but we all said that. So when you get to Smile 2 and it says a pop star, my first thought was, oh, are they going to do the ending of Truth or Dare where the YouTube podcaster curses her entire audience? Are we going to do that? Please tell me we're not going to do that. And that's what they did. And that's what they did. And to me, that was just the most predictable way to end this film, which really bummed me out. I also didn't really get much out of the reveal of the demon in this one. I thought that sequence was fucking awesome in the first movie. Whenever they ripped the face apart and it's the monster with the ongoing mouths and it was all practical and like a big dude in a little area, a little house, the way that they're shooting it, that whole thing was so fucking cool. And then here with the giant comically oversized arms and then the same look but shot from the side, I just found it to be wildly ineffective for me. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the sour taste that was left in my mouth was, you know, everything that we were exploring with this this random guy that's been trying to help Naomi Scott, that was all a hallucination. Now we're at the concert where I knew we were going to end this film, and then even the creature reveal, while they tried to do it a little differently, just wasn't nearly as effective for me. That last 10 minutes of the movie really killed it for me. So still recommend it overall. I mean, the direction, the performances, a lot of the stuff here going on, it's still an experience I think most people are going to dig, probably more than me. But it's a bummer. I wish I could have walked out saying what a lot of people are saying, that this was an easy improvement over the first film, which was already a nice little surprise. But it's more fun to be on the side of it that's telling everybody how awesome it is and cheering it on and getting everybody hyped up. But just didn't have that experience this time around, unfortunately. So is what it is. You win some, you lose some. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, click over here for all of my 2024 new release reviews. I'm also going to put my review of the original Smile up here for you to check out. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. Get yourself some magic spoon down in the video description below. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.